Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Arjun, and I'm the founder of Pivot. Um, Thank you for joining me on a Thursday evening for those of you who have. And, I think this is going to be one of those sessions which will probably give you a lot of insights with regard to exactly what is happening in the current job market. Why is it so different than so many other challenging job markets that we have seen over the last, let's say, 1 or 2 decades? And currently, what are the top job seekers, people who are landing multiple offers, what are they really doing differently compared to an average job seeker that is helping them be more visible and make more impact in terms of hiring managers and recruiters who are responding to them and they're getting more interview callbacks. So those are the key points that we're going to cover in today's session. So the topic, as you know, is the job search playbook to land multiple offers in today's job market. Now, we will discuss a specific system, a stepwise process towards the end of this session. But the first thing that I want to start off with is just high level understanding of what is really going on in the current job market, right? So we have seen that over the last 3 years, especially since late 2022 early 23, there has been a lot of new developments in the job market which have made it exceptionally challenging for majority of mid-level or senior level candidates. And what are these key developments? I would say the number one development is this notion within companies that you don't have to keep all the employees that you have already hired on your payroll. Earlier, layoffs were seen as a last resort strategy, which were only applied when companies were in a tough situation. They were, in deep losses, and investors were breathing down their necks to make sure that they were optimizing their cost structure and ensuring that they don't have bloat in their company. Bloat means when you have excessive headcount in your company. Now, that was perhaps the requirement from investors up till 2015, even 2020. Now, there's a lot of overhiring that happened during 2021 to 2022 because of COVID. There were certain trends that led to certain sectors, especially sectors like edtech, or certain other technology sectors, where there was an interim boom because of COVID. Companies that were helping set up remote offices, those kind of things. And in general, there was this expectation that that trend would continue, of business boom. But once COVID ended, there was a different type of boom which was not anticipated in the sectors which we thought were going to stagnate because of COVID. While the sectors which were doing well during COVID started to stagnate post COVID. So because of this kind of a miss projection of what is going to trend post COVID, there were companies that had overhired, so they had to let go a lot of employees at the time. But at the same time, once that trend started in late 2022 early 23, many other companies saw that trend and basically went like, oh, we can do this too if other competitors are doing. um, Primarily to stay as efficient in terms of productivity, in terms of revenue per employee, in terms of overall profitability, by cutting down headcount costs. So that is the first thing that started in 23, which is why you are continuing to see the impact of that trend even to today, and that could continue in the foreseeable future. There is no significant indication that that trend is going to die down. We have seen companies like Oracle, the big mang companies, and also a lot of other non-tech companies as well as startups, all going through decent amount of churn and layoffs in the last 3 years. So the first thing that is impacting the job market is all of the talent that is being laid off from these headcount reduction activities happening at all the different type of companies. they are also part of the current job market and they are competing with you. Most of these employees have not been let go because of performance reasons or fitment issues. They have been let go just because of business restructuring. Business restructuring is the most common term that companies use anytime they have to justify a layoff, because it shows that it's not the fault of the employees. It was something that resulted based on the company's own strategic evolution of where they want to take the company, right? So if the company says, hey, we are changing our direction that we are going to head in now, and because of that we don't need certain set of people, at least what helps is those people are not considered as bad performers, which is typically the stigma around layoffs and people getting fired. So business restructuring, there could be also another factor that we are going to talk about soon as AI. Obviously AI is resulting in a lot of business restructuring, genuine business restructuring in the recent job market. So there are many other reasons as well, which we will cover in a second. But first, layoffs have resulted in the job market being extremely competitive. You are competing with some of the best folks who were working at top tier firms in their field, and they were let go not because of performance or fitment reasons, primarily because companies decided to be more cost effective, more efficient with their existing headcount in terms of productivity. Now, because of this, many times you will see that the visibility that you have in the current job market is highly impacted. Earlier, if there were 200 or 300 people applying to an opening on average, today you are seeing 500 to 600 people applying to the same opening on average. So because of this, we know that there is going to be a lot more competition than before, because earlier if you had less than 1 to 2% probability, now it's less than 0.5% probability, because there are double the number of candidates in the market, right? So that's the first reason job market feels so brutal and so tough. The second reason is definitely AI. So AI has impacted the job market in multiple ways. I'll talk about the first and most important one. I think the most important thing is the productivity gains that companies have experienced because of AI have definitely resulted in business restructuring, as I mentioned earlier. And that has caused companies to think about how much or the volume of talent they need to complete a task. Earlier, if it was taking 10 people to do a certain set of responsibilities, today it might be taking maybe 5 or 6 or 7 people to do the same amount of work, right? Depending on how much AI they have been able to leverage to complete the same tasks. Obviously, AI is not resulting in entire departments being vanishing. Yes, there are some companies which have trialed it, but they have not succeeded massively when they completely removed entire departments with only AI. So most of the times we are seeing that there are still most companies who are retaining employees for a specific department, but they are considering downsizing the department size from, let's say, 10 to 5 employees. In that, obviously you will have those other 5 employees who are being impacted through layoffs. um, so this is the first impact through productivity gains that AI is having on the job market. The second thing that we are seeing with regard to AI is how it's impacting the skill requirements for people who are being currently hired or not hired in the job market. So a lot of times companies are, whether you are a technical talent or non-tech talent in marketing, let's say HR, or strategy operations roles, project management roles, in all of these technical and non-technical roles, companies are looking for people who have not just functional expertise or domain expertise. Today they are looking for people who also bring the AI expertise on board, in terms of not just taking a course, but having built something using AI that they can showcase as a potential for creating better workflows for your function. So for example, if you're an HR professional who's been into recruiting or onboarding, can you now use AI to diminish the amount of time to onboard new employees or new hires, right? So those things, if you can showcase on your profile, not just talk about it theoretically, but actually demonstrate in a vivid manner that you have brought about certain uh, yeah, workflow optimization gains, or you might have improved the quality of your service or your product using AI, or anything else where AI is a core part of your skill set. That is definitely being preferred in the job market. It's taking some time for certain functions, but it is there pretty much for every function. The reason this is impacting the job market is now companies are preferring certain type of candidates more over the ones who don't have this particular skill. The third thing that AI is doing is also in regard with how hiring is happening. So we talked about the productivity gains from AI. We also talked about how companies are requiring AI skill set, but at the same time, companies are using AI for hiring purpose as well. So earlier, it was primarily non-AI ATS systems and recruiters that were doing hiring. Today, AI is making a lot of initial decisions during the hiring process for large volume hiring, at least. It may not be happening a lot at mid to senior levels, to be honest, but we are seeing that trend gain some traction. It could be impacting certain levels of hiring happening at mid to senior levels as well. So the way it works is now companies are utilizing AI to parse the resumes and the applications they get for the first round. And they are also using AI sometimes for the initial screening rounds that earlier recruiters or hiring managers used to have. Because of this, things have become a little more mechanical, even though AI's capabilities are pretty sophisticated when they are being used for hiring purpose. But at the same time, they are not always as good as an experienced recruiter or a hiring manager. So in some cases, we are seeing that AI is not able to make the best decision with regard to the candidate selection or screening process. In that, you need to be you're ready to understand how does AI hiring actually work. What is AI specifically looking for? What are the criteria specifically mentioned in the JD which you should adhere to as much as possible to drive better conversion on your applications, right? Sometimes you also can't really do anything in terms of changing AI's screening capability because it's being done on the hiring manager side. But what you can do is understand that you're not always going to meet the criteria for even certain roles when you are finding those roles to be a good fit. So recently we worked with a candidate who applied only to jobs when he thought he was a really 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 good fit, because that is the strategy he had used in his prior transitions in the job market. Now the thing with the current job market is that strategy is actually a very smart strategy, but you can't only depend on that strategy today because of AI. You might be a great fit, but there is a chance that AI might not parse your application because they have already shortlisted the top, let's say, 20 or 30 candidates to interview, and your profile just came much later in the game. Right now, at this point, there's a chance that a recruiter or hiring manager has not even seen your resume for even 5 seconds, right? So the infamous trend used to be, hey, you have 7 seconds or 10 seconds to prove that you're a good fit to a recruiter. But what if the recruiter or hiring manager does not ever see your profile because there are 500 candidates who have applied? You might be a great fit, you might be in the top 10%, but you are not being noticed because AI has already made the decision and given the shortlisted candidates to the hiring team. So you have to buffer your job search strategy for these kind of situations. So earlier, if you were thinking that, okay, I'll apply only to the jobs where I have 80 or 90% skill match, which means I'll only apply to maybe one job a day or one job every other day. That used to be a great strategy, and we still think you don't need to spray and pray and apply to a very high volume of jobs, but you also can't do this because you need a buffer in case AI screens you out unintentionally because it has already passed out the initial shortlisted candidates. So these are all the reasons why AI is impacting the job market. The last thing that I want to talk about is the job market being impacted by job seekers and mid-career professionals changing habits and what they want from work. So earlier, people used to stay at a company for, let's say, on average 4 to 5 years tenure. I'm talking about last 2 decades or so. But in this decade, what we have seen, those average tenures have come down significantly from 4 5 years to just about 2 years or slightly under 2 years, right? So it has halved from what it used to be. And because of this, basically, even if, let's say, companies are not laying off employees or AI had not impacted the job market, even then you would see more competition in the market because more and more people are trying to get exposure at different companies in different environments because they see it as a faster growth trajectory for their careers. I don't necessarily agree with this strategy because, if you stay with a company, your understanding of how things work compounds over a period of time, and you are able to learn more, sometimes even grow more, make a bigger impact. Just look at, for example, recent CEO from Apple. Look at some of the Indian company CEOs in the Tata companies. They have been at the company for a very long period of time, so things do compound. But yes, if you're looking to optimize for the short term, like when I say short term, I mean for the next, let's say, 4, 5, 6 years, then yeah, if you do make these shifts, you will realize that you are getting a better paycheck because of negotiation, and companies usually pay a little more when they're hiring a new employee versus promoting an internal employee. That does happen, but that optimizes things for the short term, not the long term. In long term, things compound over a period of time. Once you have established yourself, you see better outcomes by staying at the company typically. So, anyways, these are the core reasons why the job market is currently such a brutally competitive job market. The next thing that I want to talk about is now the corollary topic of this, which is how do you actually stand out in such a market, right? It has been talked about that you need to differentiate yourself, you need to showcase your uniqueness, your core achievements. All of this has been talked about for years and years, and people, I would say, most people already know about these aspects, wherein if it's a competitive market, it's harder to get noticed, so you need to be unique or differentiated. People also talk about how you need to have a resume which meets certain criteria, for example, ATS alignment, star metrics. It needs to have a specific type of format. These are all things which are table stakes today. What I mean by that is there are probably majority of candidates in the job market who already know this or are using AI to meet these criteria, because these are very fundamental basic criteria. And there is absolutely no guarantee today in the job market that you apply with these fundamental or basic job search strategies and you will be able to land your target role, right? So we need to talk about what are the real differentiated strategies for today's job market, not a job market of 5 years or 10 years ago. And so that's what I want to focus on. That's what the system that we have built for job seekers and career transitioners, which we'll talk about next, is going to focus on as well. So the first thing that we are noticing in terms of factors that really move the needle for a large number of folks we work with in mid-career transitions is how you are positioning your profile in the current job market. That positioning is, if I had to define it, is basically a clear explanation of why you are the best candidate vis-a-vis or in comparison to other candidates who have similar profiles or perhaps even a better profile than you, right? So that is how we would define it. Now, how do you actually get to it? Typically what we have seen is a profile positioning is a lot of times focused too much on the individual because it's your profile positioning, so people end up focusing quite a bit on, okay, what are my core skills, what are my past achievements, how do I package that to create a unique profile positioning for myself? Again, not a bad idea, but not sufficient either. What you need to look at today is understanding that companies are also looking for very specific type of candidates. So profile positioning is then a function of not just what your skill set is or what you have done in the past in terms of xyz responsibilities or achieving certain outcomes in your job. You need to also look at what a company specifically looking for, right? So the profile positioning is a function of the research that you do about that particular company that you're applying to, in addition to what you bring to the table. So let's take an example. We recently worked with somebody who was transitioning from non-tech marketing roles to tech marketing roles, right? So this person had never worked in the field of marketing but wanted to go into tech field within the same domain, which is marketing, because they felt that there are much higher growth opportunities, more exposure to different types of marketing responsibilities, etc., etc. And what we realized is this person had talked a lot about their achievements in non-tech industries, but they were not really talking about how they could actually drive the right outcomes for tech companies, right? So if a company is looking at your profile and they see, okay, wow, this person has been able to drive a lot of, let's say, qualified leads to the company, or they have been able to drive a lot of footfall for retail stores, right? How does that translate to a tech company's goals is not very clear. So what we did here was we definitely first focused on the kind of strengths and achievements that this candidate brought to the table, because that would be important to ensure we are taking their core expertise into account and how they add more value compared to other candidates in the field. But at the same time, we contextualized it based on research that we did on the tech companies that the person was aspiring for. So this person had worked in BFSI, but they have not worked in any tech field, like I said. So we thought about what are the type of industries that would be the best fit in tech. Now, fintech is one of the obvious answers. There were certain other type of tech companies also that we shortlisted because they were adjacent to the type of finance or fintech industries that we were looking at. So once we had shortlisted these industries, we went deep. We went deep into the company goals and challenges that were being experienced by the top firms within this particular sector. And we identified two or three common patterns across these companies in terms of what they were focusing on. For example, for fintech, one of the biggest things is regulatory compliance. So even though that does not necessarily impact the marketing role directly because it's not a compliance role, but it does showcase that a lot of these fintech companies wanted to be perceived as very trusted companies, wanted to be perceived as a very dependable company in the market, which obviously involves how marketing creates that positioning for that company. So we talked a lot about building trustable brands by doing specific type of branding and positioning, right? The other thing we found in terms of the key insight was that there was a lot of growth happening, high level of growth happening in these companies because they were hiring actively. There's a lot of positive investor sentiment. So the other thing we talked about for this candidate is how he was able to drive a high level of growth in his prior companies. Obviously that growth was not within tech environment, but there were certain strategies from a GTM perspective he had applied which would also be potentially useful in a tech setting. So we talked about that, right? So these are the type of things that we identified by doing research on the target companies, as opposed to just depending on what this person's profile was in the non-tech companies, right? So that is one of the most important things to do, is by doing positioning based on your skills, achievements, as well as research on the company you're targeting. The second thing that we have seen really impacts your job search outcomes in the market today is how you are staying ahead of the curve when it comes to skill upgradation or upskilling. So a lot of times people have come to us thinking about, hey, I'm kind of feeling like I'm stagnating in my role. I have been at the same company for, let's say 3, 4, 5 years. And while the initial growth was good, now I feel like I'm not really learning anything new. And I feel like I would not be capable enough to be good at my job if I went to other companies. So that is a reality for many professionals today. And sometimes you could be even at the top of your game in a company, but still not be perceived as a strong candidate at another company because they might have different skill requirements than your current company. So skills have become a very I would say volatile factor in this entire equation because they're evolving very rapidly, right? Companies have very quickly evolving requirements, changing requirements over a short period of time. AI obviously has a big role to play. I already mentioned how AI is impacting the skill requirements from a company perspective. But even outside of AI, companies are looking not just for functional expertise anymore. Like for example, let's say you're a product manager or a program manager. So companies are not just looking at, okay, this person knows product management or program management, core your knowledge and expertise. They're also trying to understand if you bring specific sectoral expertise to the table, right? So when we are looking at skill sets, don't just go after AI, don't just go after your functional skills. Also understand that there are, industry specific skill set, there are behavioral skills or soft skills as people call them. So you have to look at things holistically when you're thinking about skill alignment to your target role. Now, companies don't expect you to be 100% aligned on all the skill requirements, but they do want to see majority alignment, meaning at least 60 to 70% alignment. So in that regard, your goal should be to look at the, JDs that you're targeting, and look at what are the most commonly preferred or prioritized skill requirements in these JDs. Look at what are the most important and must have skill requirements in these JDs, right? You can also talk to industry experts who are hiring on platforms like Pivot, where you can get direct understanding of what are the current skills that companies are looking for, right? So you can go to mypivot.work, which the website link is shared in my signature. But once you go there, let's say schedule a session with an expert, you will quickly understand from them what are, like, how are they making hiring decisions based on skill evaluation. And so based on JD analysis, based on speaking with industry experts, you can get a pretty good idea of all these different type of skills that I have mentioned, right? So whether it's AI related skills, functional or domain skills, behavioral skills, or industry skills, these are all you should be looking at. And again, the core focus should be on where companies are prioritizing these skill requirements. Where do you see the patterns that most companies are requiring XYZ skill, and which are the most non-negotiable and must-have skills? These are the ones that you want to ensure you bring to the table, right? So how to upskill, I think that's another point that we are seeing a clear day and night of a difference between candidates who get hired and who don't. So a lot of people who used to believe that courses and certifications were enough to get them a job are disillusioned today. They have realized that those don't always actually result in meaningful job opportunities. They may drive better knowledge or understanding of a subject matter that you delved into, but they don't result in job opportunities directly, most of the times. And the reason is because that knowledge is unproven. That knowledge that you have gained is primarily theoretical most of the times. You might have even done a capstone project, but companies don't count it because almost anybody who has applied to that role must have done that, or sorry, who has applied to that course or gone through that course must have done that capstone project. So we want to not just think about our knowledge enhancement. The core paradigm shift that we have seen in upskilling recently is more in regard with how you can showcase and very quickly, very easily demonstrate to potential employers that you have a deep understanding in terms of implementing that knowledge, right? So implementation or execution and getting certain outcomes has become the name of the game. And sometimes people may think, oh, I work in XYZ role, how can I do that? It's very hard for me. Yeah, for certain roles it will be harder than the others to actually build something for your new skill area that you have recently gained, because you might not be able to practice that skill at your field, at your current workplace. So you only have to depend on external avenues to be able to build a project, or let's say build a portfolio for that particular skill. But I think it is possible, no matter which role it is. We have worked with many candidates on building these kind of projects or portfolios. um, and they go way more beyond what just a generic course can do on your resume. So a course on your resume sometimes is table stakes. For example, if you're a project manager, you might need a PMP certification, right? If you are cybersecurity, you might need grpc. So there are obviously these kind of specific certification requirements which definitely you should do. But the point is, they are not sufficient in and of itself always to land a job, especially when you're targeting premium roles or the top companies. In those type of environments, you need to prove that you can actually drive outcomes using this new skill. And so, building projects using AI tools, building projects just through your own imagination, which aligns well what the company might be looking for. I think that is also very very helpful in today's market, right? So that's the second thing, right? How you demonstrate your skill in a vivid and palpable manner. The third thing that I would say is probably the biggest differentiator in the current job market in terms of people who are able to quickly land jobs versus not is visibility. How much visibility do you have in the current job market, right? And visibility means networking. Now, networking gets a bad rep because many people who are in mid or senior level roles, they feel hesitant to network, or even if they are networking, they primarily focus on people within their close knit network who are let's say the top 5, 10, maximum 15 people. And that's fine, right? You don't necessarily need to network with hundreds of people. That's not the goal. But because this is a specific job market where visibility is highly highly compromised for majority of individuals, um, you need to do whatever you can to maximize your visibility in a strategic manner, not in a just blindly spamming every person at your target company. Not in that way, but strategically networking to get the best ROI on the efforts you're putting in for networking. So in that regard, there are a couple of different types of things that you want to optimize for, right? So typically we think of 5 factors when we think of networking. uh, who you are reaching out to, when you reach out to them, where or how you reach out to them, right? What you say to them, and exactly how you follow up with them, right? So these are the 5 key parameters that you want to think about. Most people are doing very low ROI networking where, like I said, they are sending spammy messages to a bunch of recruiters and hiring managers at their target companies. And that actually does not work at all in today's job market. We want to make sure that, for example, when we are reaching out to people outside of our network, that we do a high level of personalization, customization to the messages that we are reaching out or using. And not always just using AI, because AI is being used by anybody and everybody. You are not the only person who's using AI. Maybe 80-90% of job seekers today are using AI. So if you think your prompt is better than another person's prompt, you're likely mistaken, because most people will have a similar or maybe even slightly better prompt than you. So you can't differentiate on just using AI for networking. You really have to actually do certain type of research yourself on that person or on the company, which I was talking about earlier as well, right? When you're building a unique profile positioning, do certain research. So this common theme that we have found is how much research you end up actually doing and utilizing that to customize your outreach, right? Same time, if you are reaching out to recruiters, most of the times you're not going to hear back. So you need to be strategic in terms of who you reach out to, right? Typically, people who are not necessarily recruiters, but maybe they are on the hiring team, or perhaps even in roles that may not be on the hiring team, but these people within that company, right? So those are the type of people to reach out to. So there are a bunch of strategies in networking which help you drive greater ROI on your efforts. Please don't do things which sound like that they work based on internet garbage that's kind of trending out there. A lot of those strategies that are being shared out there today are from 10-15 years ago, when people had just started networking. Today networking is a beast of its own, and you want to ensure that you are doing everything possible to get the best ROI. So think about those 5 factors. Think about more research oriented, highly customized, non AI networking, which produces better results. These are some of the core things that we have seen candidates using to land the best roles or multiple offers in the current job market. Right now, what I want to do next is share our stepwise system for how we think job search and career transitions can be improved significantly based on certain factors that have the biggest impact on the outcomes. Right, so we have tried to establish this structure by doing a couple of things. Number one, remove all the noise from the job search process that people have talked about but don't actually drive any major outcomes. Secondly, we have tried to only focus on the factors which are leading the biggest successes or outcomes on job search process. The third thing is personalization. Right, we have obviously certain structure of this process, otherwise it would not be a process in the first place. But within this structure there is some flexibility so that you can personalize it to your specific background, goals, and priorities. Right, so these were some of the core pillars that we used to build this entire structure. But without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, I hope you all can see it. I will try to zoom it in. Let's see. Hmm. Okay, let's see if we can make this landscape. Yes, perfect. All right, so I think we can all now look at this. So here, um, firstly, let's go to the homepage. So this is our website, which is for Pivot. It's called mypivot.work. And if you go to the website, you can create an account for free very quickly. It takes maybe a matter of seconds. Once you have created your profile, then you land on this homepage. Okay. And on this homepage, you're going to see a bunch of things which talk about your progress. Now, what is that planner progress? This is the career planner which we have devised as the end-to-end transition framework, comprising 5 different modules that break down your transition into a stepwise process. Okay, so each module has a specific purpose or a goal to be achieved, and the way we achieve that goal is by completing the exercises shown under that particular module. All right, so the first module, for example, is explore. The purpose of this module is to help you understand basically what are the best career options from a role, industry, and profile positioning perspective. And the way we cover these, or we get to this module's goal, is by completing these exercises that are shown under this particular module. Once these are done, then we move to the next module and so forth. Right, so each of the module has a specific purpose or a goal. I already talked about explores purpose, but for networking our goal is to connect with the most relevant people who can not just give you advice but can actually support you on your transition, meaning provide tangible support through, let's say, referrals, connections, job opportunities, etc. Learn is all about understanding what are your core strengths, how to highlight them in an effective manner in your job applications while simultaneously bridging any skill gaps that you might have. Right, and then prepare is focused on building job application in terms of your resume, LinkedIn profile, cover letter, portfolio, anything which you might use to showcase a very strong profile for the jobs that you're applying to, how to optimize them. And also prepare for interviews. That is something that is covered at the bottom of this module, where we talk about what are the talking points that you should prepare. Meaning, a lot of times when people are going into interviews, they kind of wing it, they don't really prepare. So the first thing is to understand the level of preparation you need, the kind of talking points you need to make an impact, and then practicing those talking points through mock interviews with both HR experts as well as hiring manager experts. Right, and then you have the apply module primarily focuses on the actual job search process, wherein it focuses on what kind of jobs you should be applying to, what are the jobs you should not be applying to, and ignoring, so that you don't waste a lot of your time. It also helps you track all of the applications that you are submitting in one place, so that you know which ones are working, which ones are not working, where you have to follow up with certain hiring managers or recruiters or not. The third thing that we do here is probably one of the most critical things, which is referral requests. In this, we focus a lot on how you can not just apply to jobs cold on job boards, but rather get referrals from Pivot's network, from your own network, and the larger, broader network, right? So these are the things that we focus on here. Apart from, yeah, the final thing is offer negotiation. A lot of times people want to see if they can get a better offer than what they got first from the company. It's not always necessary to negotiate every offer, so it's not like this particular part is always used as part of this structure. But for many people, they want to make sure that they are not being underpaid, right, compared to, let's say, their prior role or what the market rate is. So for them, offer negotiation, I think, is a helpful module to focus on. So these are the things that we focus on. Now let's take a quick test drive of kind of what we particularly focus on in this module. So when you click on get started, you'll see a quick demo. You can check it out later as well, but we'll go to the next exercise for now. So the first exercise or set of exercises that we focus on, as you can see here in the left, are these three introspection exercises, right? So in these three introspection exercises, we identify your interests, skills, and priorities that help us define what are the core parameters specific to you, which we should be taking into account while defining your profile positioning, right? So you will actually, when you land here, you will see certain recommendations already populated for you based on the role that you have shared with us at the time of onboarding. So from that, you can decide to choose which interests you have, which interests you want to add. You can add it over here. If you want to edit them, you can do that, right? So here you're already getting AI as a brainstorming partner to help you figure out what are your biggest interests. Once this is done, you move to the next exercise, which is focused on skills. Same thing here. You are thinking about what are the areas of work that you are exceptional at, where you have driven the biggest outcomes, you have gotten the most positive feedback from your peers or your clients or your manager, right? So those are the type of things that you're putting down here. They will definitely be used in a very impactful manner for your profile positioning. And then lastly, we talk about priorities. Now, this is one of the more underrated parts of this particular module, where we want to understand what are you trying to optimize for at this stage in your career. What is most valuable to you at this stage in your career? And there could be multiple things, but typically we ask people to restrict to maximum, 5 priorities, which they can select that this is what I'm really trying to optimize, or this is what I value the most right now. And once you have done that, you will see an overview of whatever you have filled out over here, right? And after that, we go to the next steps over here, where you will see certain relevant roles that are populated based on whatever you have provided in the introspection exercises for your interest, skills, and priorities. And at the same time, this also takes into account the current job market and hiring trends. So we want to make sure everything we do is contextualized based on your background and goals, but also the job market. So that's why when you're looking at these roles, they take into account both of those things, not just one. You can also add more roles if you think something is not considered. But the goal here is to kind of cast the net to see what kind of roles are worth considering. Now, you may already know which role you're targeting. That's highly possible, but this can still give you some insight with regard to what could be the other adjacent roles, right? And the goal is not to consider every single role out here, but to use it just as a starting point, as something where you then further shortlist what are the target roles to finalize, right? So this is the first casting of net that we do. After this, we go to the next exercise, typically if you have signed up for one of our plans, you would be speaking to or before you speak to one of our advisors, you'll be taking this personality test. Personality test is used to validate that, hey, the roles that we have evaluated in the last exercise, are they generally aligned with our personality? Is there any other type of role which we may have missed, which did not come through in the last exercise? So it's more like a validation based on certain psychometric models that assess what makes you perform well at work, right? So you might see certain roles here as well. Now we have done significant amount of work to understand what are the type of opportunities that we should even consider, right? Then you use your judgment, or if you have signed up for one of our plans, you can get the help of our career strategists who will help you shortlist the type of role that you should be targeting, right? So here typically you can read more about each of the roles, and you can then shortlist a role by clicking on shortlist, right? Typically we want you to shortlist maximum up to 2 or 3 roles. Then you move to the next exercise. At this point, you will be recommended certain industry experts. You can get feedback from them with regard to, what kind of roles you should be finalizing at this stage. Typically, you can ask them about clarity related to that role if you don't understand any aspects about the role, because it's perhaps new for you. Or you can also just get their feedback on how is your profile being perceived in the market, meaning your profile positioning, right? So both of those things are valid. And once you're done with this, then you can finalize which roles you should be targeting, right? So here you will see that the shortlisted roles that we had looked at in the prior few exercises, um, those are populated over here. And we have used AI to come up with certain very not subjective but rather objective pros and cons that are specific to your profile as well, not just generic in nature. And you can add more pros and cons and make a final decision of which role you want to target. So this explore module that we have just gone through, by the time you have finished it, it'll take maybe, let's say, 1 day to do it. But by the time you have finished it, what we have seen is you'll have much stronger understanding of what is your profile positioning, why should you be hired instead of other candidates who have similar experience or better experience than you, and what type of roles, industries and companies are the best fit for you. And that sets a very strong foundation for this entire process, right? Once this is done, then we move on to the network module. Now in network module, same thing, you would start by looking at the demo to understand what exactly you're supposed to do. After that, you know we typically recommend three types of networking that work really well. One is community based networking. This is the easiest one, where you're doing one to many networking, meaning you're not doing one on one, you're meeting multiple people as part of these communities. So right now it's going to recommend certain communities based on the type of roles that I had shortlisted. You can choose any of those communities, here those communities, and again you can choose those communities based on your preferences. Certain communities would be more industry specific, some of the communities might be slightly less industry specific, but they give you exposure to broader set of people. So the main advantage of community based networking is getting deep understanding of the key trends of that particular industry, right? So it's kind of like reading a newspaper in the morning. You go to these community platforms, you check out their forum discussions, and you find that there are certain topics that are getting a lot of traction in your particular target role or industry. So there you can figure out, okay, what information can I extract that will help me improve my job application or my interview preparation, right? So that's one advantage. The other is, if you participate in these communities, you will actually be able to also get a lot of visibility, because these are industry specific communities as well. So some of the people who are on these committees might be from your industry, looking to hire or looking to collaborate. So many times we have seen, if people actively participate by creating content or organizing, let's say, webinars, those kind of things get you more visibility in these communities, and you can definitely try and get opportunities directly through these communities as well. Then we move on to the next type of networking here, which is going to be networking based on your existing connections. So right now here, what you have to do is upload your LinkedIn connections. It's a very simple process that we have described here. You upload the file, and once you upload it, what it will do in the next stage is it will show you all the relevant people in your target role, and then you can use these templated messages, which we have shown 5 different templates, but these are the most tried and tested templates which are proven to drive the best response rates from people you reach out to. So there are 5 types. First 3 are for people who you don't really know so well. So if you are reaching out to strangers, you probably want to establish a good relationship with them first by sending something related to their profile that you noticed, or related to their um, work that you noticed. And the other thing is you might reach out to people who you know well. So in that regard, you want to probably focus on these 2 templates, which will help you get to the heart of the matter by asking the person what kind of roles you should be applying to. And if you want a referral from them, then you can also use some of these templates to get a referral, right? So yeah, I think these are the couple of things that you can do over here. You can also, by the way, when you click on this, you'll see that you can use AI as well to enhance these outreach messages based on whatever your requirements are. But typically the format that we have already given should be quite helpful in terms of driving those responses. All right, now we move on to the next page over here. So the next module now that we are looking at is the learn module. And here what our goal is, to focus on understanding what gaps are there and making sure that you are bridging those gaps in an efficient manner. So the first thing you're going to see is skills recommended for your target role that you had shortlisted earlier. You can select from that, like for example, I will select a couple of these over here. um, and you can also select roles for any secondary role that skills for secondary role that you have thought of. The other thing that we'll see after this is, you know these are the current skills, and after that you will see that we are looking at the skill alignment versus skill gaps over here for each of the roles, right? So this is what we want to focus on over here. Now you again connect with industry experts if you have a plan. Otherwise you can schedule just one-off session to understand how to bridge those skill gaps that you have identified in the prior exercise. And then you come up to this exercise where you'll see a bunch of courses based on whatever type of gap we have specifically identified. And based on that, you can shortlist which course makes most sense for you. You don't necessarily have to sign up for a course. Perhaps if you don't have any major gap, then in that case you don't have to sign up. Or if there's another reason that you think you are good, for example, the skill gap is not a must have skill, it's a good to have skill, then you don't necessarily have to take a course, right? Apart from that, once you start a course, you will see that you can track your journey over here to see, like, okay, which are the courses I'm taking, how much have I completed, what is the expected completion date, so that I can start working on my job applications close to that particular completion date, right? And then we go to the next exercise. Pretty much done with the learn module as well. Now we are getting to the heart of this entire framework, which is prepare module. This is the one where we start preparing for job applications by optimizing a resume, LinkedIn, portfolio, cover letter. So I won't go through all of these in a lot of detail right now, given the paucity of time. But if you go through these in your own time, you will realize that many of them will help you optimize your resume and your other documents by leveraging AI in a very contextualized manner. Contextualized meaning it AI, if you use it on Claude or GPT, you have to give a lot of prompts, you have to give a lot of context to the AI to be able to optimize in the right way. But because we have worked with you on the first three modules, we already have all the context. So by this time, you don't need to give major prompts. You can if you want, but you will see that we already have good context. So it will be very simple and straightforward for you to optimize your resume at this stage. Same thing goes for the other aspects of your job application. And once you get to interview preparation, then you will notice that you'll get key talking points for the type of roles that you are thinking about. And you will also see that there are a couple of areas which you might have not noticed in terms of how to stand out during interviews, right? So it might take a couple of seconds, because it is again using a lot of context that you have been sharing with us in the prior exercises. But within, let's say, 30 to 60 seconds, it will give you a very customized talking point plan for your interviews, and that can be used to prepare better for your upcoming interviews. After that, we generally recommend like a mock interview with H for an HR round, and a mock interview for hiring manager rounds. Both of these are different rounds focusing on different skill requirements. So typically we suggest that you do it with real humans, although I know there are other platforms out there who are espousing that you do preparation with AI. Typically, we don't suggest that, because AI is a fairly mechanical way of getting feedback. It may not be very personalized to you always. So, the other thing is, ultimately, interviews will happen with humans at the end of the day. So, you need to prepare in the same manner, rather than only thinking about uh, AI preparation. And then once this is all done, we'll go to the apply module, where you'll start to see job recommendations based on the type of jobs that you were thinking about applying to. So you'll see, here I had selected talent development manager. I've gotten 740 jobs, and related to it, when you look at these job recommendations over here, you'll notice that you can get a job math score that showcases what's your overall fitment for that job, just by uh, uploading your resume, right? So you need to obviously unlock the job math score by uploading your resume, but once that's done, you'll be able to see the fitment, which can help you decide better whether to apply to that job or not, right? The other thing that you can do is apply straightforward by clicking on this CTA button. But at the same time, you can also get referred to that role if we have, or you have, a connect at that particular company. Now, once you click on the get referred button, you will be taken to this page where it will show what connections we have and you have in your community, where you can get referrals, right? So these are the kind of things that I think can be really, really powerful and different compared to some of the other job boards, where you don't get referrals, where you don't get a job math score. So these are the core things that we are currently focusing on. Um, Quickly go here. You can also look at the job application tracker. Right now, I've not added anything, but you can add new jobs over here. And then you can go to the next page, where again, it's a referral page. um, Once that is done, you can go to offer negotiation. So these are basically all the people from our community, but you can get referrals from your own community as well, as I had mentioned earlier. Here, in terms of offer negotiation, we have, for each different types of roles that are shortlisted, once you put in that role, and let's say you put in a specific amount, um, like, let's say the amount is a bit higher than what you make currently. So you can put these numbers over here, and it will tell you what you should be targeting in terms of your offer negotiation, right? So this is the kind of so you can see that basically, this is the right range for you, and you can use that for offer negotiation as well. So these are the type of things that you can use to understand how to negotiate a better offer. That's pretty much it. These are all the five modules that I wanted to take you through. Let's see if we have gotten anything in terms of. Not yet. It's going to take a little bit more time to generate the interview talking points, but I think you get the gist. It will definitely show you the talking points. It just parses through your resume and the job market requirements, so it can take sometimes 1 to 2 minutes, but it will generate customized talking points. And this can be very helpful when you are getting interviews but not able to convert them, to first realize like what are your red flags that you might not be seeing. So these talking points will help you with that. That's pretty much it for today. I hope that you were able to understand how to utilize Pivot platform for your to your advantage, and make sure that you're not leaving anything to chance, right? You are focusing on the most, I would say, the most important factors that drive success in the current job market. Think we have covered everything. If there are any other questions, or any other areas of discussion that you would like to have, please check out our website, which is mypivot.work. You can book a session with a pivot advisor, or you can book a session with industry mentors to get direct feedback on your transition journeys. And that is one of the key benefits of this platform, because in the current market you don't get a lot of feedback when you're applying to jobs. You either get rejected or ghosted without any major feedback. So if you don't know what is not working in your transition, you won't be able to actually achieve the right goals, because you'll keep doing the same thing over and over. So getting feedback, removing that information asymmetry where you know less about what is not working for your profile compared to the hiring manager, that is paramount to maximize your chances in the market. That said, we are going to wrap this session up. um, I hope everybody has a great rest of their evening, and do check out Pivot at mypivot.work to structure your career transition and job search better. Thanks everyone for joining in. I hope this was helpful to you.